Paratmanamekam jagadbijamadyam niriham nirakaram onkar vidyam yato jayate palyate yena vishvam tamisham bhaje liyate yatra vishvam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dear devotees, so last Sunday we had commenced our study on the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. And we had seen the introduction, the context in which Sri Krishna is presenting the supreme reality to all of us. This chapter is extremely important for several reasons. First of all, if you remember what we discussed in the last class, in the 8th chapter, Sri Krishna has talked about the attainment of liberation in a gradual manner, which is known as Krama Mukti. At the time of death, if one succeeds in remembering Ishvara, in fixing one's mind on the supreme reality, that becomes the cause of that person's liberation taking place in a gradual manner, which is known as Krama Mukti. Sri Shankaracharya makes a very important statement introducing the 9th chapter. He says that one should not think that this is the only way of attaining liberation. This is a very important point. Yes, getting liberated in a gradual way, that is open to all of us. In fact, most of the spiritual aspirants, we all live with the hope of attaining this kind of a liberation, for which we have to fulfill certain conditions which we had seen in the 8th chapter. But Shankaracharya says one should not think that this is the only way of attaining liberation. There is another way of attaining liberation even when we are alive. That happens when we have the knowledge of the supreme reality. And this chapter is going to show us the way to attain or experience that kind of a freedom. Freedom which is not post-mortem, but the freedom which one experiences even when we are alive in this body. Now, this is the one recurring theme which we come across all the Upanishads. Even in Bhagavad Gita also. Upanishads never emphasizes or gives more importance to Krama Mukti. Upanishad's essential idea is to help the jiva or the living being experience freedom even when we are alive in this body. That is the most beautiful thing to happen in this life. And how are we going to experience this freedom? The way to experience this freedom is what Sri Krishna so beautifully says here. In the 9th chapter, you will see the perfect blend of highest jnanam and simplest bhakti. Again, I repeat this point. The speciality of the 9th chapter is a perfect blend of highest knowledge, the experience of the supreme reality as it is, combined with the simplest practice of devotion and bhakti. This combination of bhakti and jnana, or bhakti based on jnana, or jnana expressing itself in the form of beautiful practice of devotion. Again, I repeat this point. The beauty of this chapter is here, bhakti is based on jnana, and jnana expresses itself in the form of the simple devotional practices and exercises. This kind of a perfect blend of supreme jnana expressing itself in the form of bhakti becomes the way to experience that freedom when we are alive in this body. This is the central theme of this whole chapter. And Krishna wants to say that this is open to everyone. Everyone. Beautiful. The universality of this teaching is writ clearly in every verse of the 9th chapter of the Gita. We will look into those things as we proceed. And some of the very important statements you will find, great assurances coming from Sri Krishna. Sri Krishna says, Name bhaktah pranashyati. So beautiful. My devotee will never face destruction. Again, I repeat this point. What a great assurance it is. In Gita, you find such wonderful assurances coming from this great teacher, Sri Krishna. Na me bhaktah pranashyati. My bhakta means a person whose mind is always fixed on the supreme reality through bhakti, through devotion, through love, which is based upon knowledge. This bhakti is something which is based upon the supreme knowledge of the supreme reality. So this kind of a bhakta will never face destruction, Sri Krishna says here. And another beautiful statement, Ananyas chintayanto mam, ye jana pariyupasate, tesham nityabhiyuktanam, yoga kshemam vahamyaham. What a beautiful statement. A person who is constantly having his mind fixed on me, all his requirements are looked after by me and me alone. That person has got nothing to worry about. These are all famous, great assurances coming from Sri Krishna, meant for all of us. So, going back to that main point where Shankaracharya had said, you see, one should not think that Kramamukti is the only way of attaining liberation. There is something called experiencing this air of freedom even when we are alive in this body. And that can be attained by this perfect blend of bhakti and jnana. That is the central theme of this book, of this chapter. Now, Sri Krishna is going to present to us the supreme reality and its true nature. That is the first verse. Idam tute guihyatamam pravakshami anasuyave jnanam vijnana sahitam yad gyatva mokshase ashubhat. This we had seen in the last session. Sri Krishna is saying that, you see, idam means Brahma Jnanam. I am going to talk about the knowledge of the supreme reality. And the word idam is used in the sense that it is so close. It is a matter of fact of experience to all of us. There is the implication of this statement, idam, is that this reality which we are actually searching, this reality which we are actually hunting for, we are actually soaked in that reality. This is what Shankaracharya is pointing at. It's a very important indicator. Shankaracharya is saying that this reality which we are actually in search of, our every experience is completely soaked in that reality. Only we need to have the inner eye open to experience it. That reality is not something to be experienced with our gross sense organs. What is needed is jnana chakshu, the eye of the knowledge, the eye of discrimination, the eye of Viveka. When this inner eye is opened, then you will see that this reality is directly perceivable. That is the connotation of this term, idam. This Brahmagyanam, it is so close. He makes us feel the closeness of this reality. It is not something very far away. Sri Ramakrishna's beautiful statement, Shekhane Shekhane Agyan, Ikhane Ikhane Gyan. The same thing. As long as you think that God is somewhere far away, we are creating the distance. The thing which we are actually looking for, God, Ishvara, is God something different and at a distance from us? That is one big question which we have to ask ourselves, and we have to come to our own conclusion. We are all soaked in Ishvara. We are all, our every experience is completely soaked and saturated with the presence of Ishvara. Only we are not catching this part. That is the beauty of Shankaracharya's this comment. He is saying it is a matter of fact. Only we need the right eye to experience it, to perceive it. So, in the first verse, Sri Krishna said, I am going to talk to you about this Guhyatamam, the supremely secret knowledge. Why secret? Because it is not known to anyone. Something which is known to everyone is not a secret. This thing called Ishvara, or God, which we are referring to as the term God, we are all in search of it. We are not knowing about it. That's why it's the biggest secret. We may know everything of this material dimension, but what do we know about the Supreme Reality? About the Supreme Reality, we hardly have any idea. That's why it is Guhyam. Guhyam comes from the term Guha. Guha means cave, something which is hidden in the depth of the cave. It is hidden, that's why it appears to be like a secret. But here Krishna's job is to bring out that secret and present to it to the entire world. So Krishna is telling to Arjuna, hey Arjuna, I am going to tell you about the supreme secret. But there is one condition. Who can understand or who can really comprehend the supreme reality? In Vedanta, there is always one condition. Unless we fulfill that condition, we will never be able to experience the reality. We may try to comprehend it conceptually, theoretically, but it will never become a matter of practice to us. And what is that condition? The condition here is stated in one word, anasuyave. Anasuyave means a person who doesn't have any asuya. Asuya is just a representative of all the so-called psychological defects which we have. The psychological defects or the obstructions, like what? Desires, jealousy, the tendency to constantly be discontented and complain, constantly complaining, grumbling. These are the psychological defects which make us incompetent to experience the supreme reality. A person with all these defects like kama, endless desires for worldly things, a desires which induces the different emotions like jealousy, hatred, enmity, etc. That person is unfit or incompetent to experience this reality, though that person may form some conceptual idea in his or her mind. So the condition is what? To make the mind free from these defects, which are the stumbling blocks on our path to experience the supreme reality. So Krishna is saying, I am going to talk about the true nature of the supreme reality, which can be comprehended only by people who have fulfilled this condition. And then what? This knowledge which I am going to talk about, I am going to talk about both things. Which both things? The theoretical knowledge and also the experiential knowledge. The conceptual knowledge as well as the spiritual experience part of it. Not just conceptual. Merely theoretical knowledge is not going to solve our problems. You can do a research on milk. In our tradition, this example is given. You can take a glass of milk, send it to the lab for lab testing. You can make a study of the ingredients of the thing called milk. You get a long list. The milk is made of these things, these chemicals, these proteins, these enzymes. All these things are there. You have a theoretical knowledge of what milk is on the paper. But the other person is a person who has drunk the milk and he has become nourished. That is the difference between theoretical knowledge and experiential knowledge. We can have conceptual knowledge about what Vedanta is talking about. That is one thing. That will be just like having the theoretical understanding about the ingredients of the milk without drinking the milk. Other person is a wiser person. He doesn't go into the theoretical details of what milk is made up of. He drinks the milk and becomes nourished. That is what is Vijnanam. Jnanam and Vijnanam. And when you have this Vijnanam, when we have this experiential knowledge of the Supreme Reality, Krishna says, what happens? Moksha se ashubhat. It will liberate us from ashubha. Ashubha means what? All that is evil. And what is the biggest evil that we are suffering from? Bondage. Bondage is the biggest evil. Just imagine, we are all bound. We who are eternally unbound, eternally free. Again, let me repeat this point. We, each one of us, in our true nature, we are all eternally free, unbound. How is that we are experiencing this bondage? Again, I repeat this point. We who are eternally unbound, eternally free, no misery can touch us. We of that kind, how is that we are constantly drowned in endless series of experiences of misery and suffering? How is this happening? This is the biggest evil. Bondage, bandhanam, is the biggest evil. Sri Krishna says, when you have this experiential knowledge of the Supreme Reality, we shall be permanently freed from this defect, this evil of bondage. In short, what are we going to discuss here? Essentially, it is going to be the discussion of khandana bhava bandhana. This is the one theme of Vedanta. From the rishis of the Upanishads down to Sri Ramakrishna. There is the only one theme, to break away from this bondage of the samsara. We are not what we are thinking to be, number one. And this thing which we are referring to as world is not as we are thinking about it. Two things. We as human beings, we are not we as we are understanding ourselves to be. Number two, this thing which we are referring to as world, it is not as it is appearing to us. It is not the way we are understanding it. The truth is something else. When we have the experiential knowledge of that truth, all our problems come to an end. This is the great declaration with which Sri Krishna starts the 9th chapter. I am going to present to you that greatest secret, knowing which, knowing how, not only theoretically, but experientially. When you experientially know this reality, you will be freed from this bondage of this samsara. That is a great way in which Sri Krishna starts the 9th chapter. This we had seen in the last class. In the second verse, he says, Raja Vidya Raja Guhyam Pavitram Idamuttamam pratyakshaavagamam dharmyam susukham kartum avyayam. Sri Krishna is saying, again, the first three verses are actually the glorification of the supreme knowledge, the knowledge of the supreme reality, the significance of it, what is the importance of the supreme knowledge of the supreme reality. The first three verses deal with that. So Krishna is saying here in the second verse, every term is important. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. Raja means what? Sovereign. Sovereign means the most important, greatest. Raja Vidya, the sovereign Vidya, or the greatest Vidya. Again, Vidya means what? Vidya actually means nothing but science. Literally, it means science. So, Raja Vidya means what? The supreme science. Science of what? Science of consciousness. What we are going to study here, it is the science of consciousness. The supreme reality which we are talking about. That reality which we are referring using different terms like Ishvara, God, and so many other terms. That supreme reality is nothing but consciousness. Again, consciousness is only a word which we are using to refer to a reality. Consciousness is just a term which we are using to refer to a reality. That reality cannot be exhausted by any term. And yet we have to use some term. Can't help it. So, what we are referring to as that supreme reality is nothing but consciousness. And here Krishna is going to talk to us about that science of that supreme consciousness. That is what is Raja Vidya. It is the science of the supreme reality, the science of consciousness. And why it is referred to as supreme? Why is this science, spiritual science, why is spirituality referred to as supreme? This we need to understand in contrast to all the material sciences, the physical sciences. So we have sciences in two levels or in two dimensions. The science of the material dimension and the science of the spiritual dimension. Both are sciences. All the principles applicable to the physical, empirical sciences are all applicable to the spiritual science as well. This is the reason why Swami Vivekananda says it is this Hindu, this Vedanta alone which can become the universal religion. Actually, Vedanta as a religion is science. Usually we understand religion and science to be at loggerheads with each other, as if they are two different things. Yes, it is true. Religion and science are two different things from the Semitic point of view. If we just look into all the Semitic religions, they are in conflict with the modern science. Vedanta is the only religion which is actually speaking nothing but pure science. So, Sri Krishna is saying that, you see, this is the supreme science among all other sciences. Shankaracharya in his Bhashya, he says, this is the science of all other sciences. In Mundaka Upanishad, it is referred, Brahma Vidya Sarva Vidya Pratishtha. Brahma Vidya is Sarva Vidya Pratishtha. The science of Brahman, the science of consciousness is the very basis of all other sciences, physical sciences. Why this science of consciousness is supposed to be supreme? The reason is that the physical sciences, wonderful. Today this modern civilization is the result, the outcome of the amazing developments which have taken place in the physical sciences. So we are seeing the benefit of it. Amazing things, wonderful. Vedanta is not in conflict with it. Vedanta is just an extension of that. So, but there is one thing. All these wonderful things which we have gained by our advancement which we have made, in the physical sciences, is it permanently solving our problems? That is one question. No matter what developments you make here in the physical realm, this is not going to put an end to the human suffering and misery. This is an indubitable conclusion. No matter, you can have wonderful things at this material plane, but it is not going to put an end to the misery, the suffering, the fear, the insecurity which is pulsating in the heart of every living creature. That is never going to come to an end. So what puts an end to that? That comes to an end only and only by this so-called Raja Vidya, the supreme science of consciousness. When we experience our true nature as consciousness, that once and for all times puts an end to all our suffering irreversibly. Atyantika dukkha nivritti and paramananda prapti is what is the outcome of this Raja Vidya. That is why this Vidya is referred to as Raja. It is like just a king. It is king among all the sciences, because this alone can put an end to all our sufferings. And this is also the reason why it is Raja Guhyam. Just like it is Raja Vidya, it is also Raja Guhyam. Raja Guhyam means it is the greatest secret. Guhyam means secret or profound. The most profound knowledge is this knowledge of consciousness. So this science of consciousness is the greatest science, and it is also the greatest secret or the most profound science. So Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, and then what? Uttamam Pavitram. Pavitram idam Uttamam. Krishna says, it is Uttamam Pavitram. Uttamam Pavitram means what? Uttamam means it is the greatest. Uttamam. It is the greatest sanctifier or purifier. This experience of the consciousness is the one thing which will completely purify us. It will remove all the dross, all the impurities from our hearts for once and for all times. And what is the impurity? Shankaracharya in his Bhashya, in his commentary, beautifully comments. He says, this experience of the conscious, any living being, if he or she experiences one's own true nature as consciousness, in that very moment, Shankaracharya says, Ksanamatrat, in one moment, our bondage of countless numbers of lives is put to an end. So beautiful. Our bondage of our karma, which we have done in countless numbers of our past lives, everything comes to an end in one kshanam, in one moment. Sri Ramakrishna says, if a room is enveloped in darkness, you come into that room, you strike a matchstick. The moment light comes, one moment, the darkness is gone. Again, I repeat, just imagine you are inside a dark room. You come into the room, you just turn on the light. One moment, the darkness is gone. What can make this possible in our lives? It is the light of consciousness. When we experience ourselves as this light of consciousness, in one moment, Shankaracharya says, Ksanamatrat, the bondage which we have been suffering in countless and countless numbers of past lives, everything is dispelled in one moment. That is why this is the greatest purifier. Uttamam Pavitram. Nothing can be more purifying than this knowledge of one's own true self, jnana. Elsewhere, in this very Gita, Sri Krishna says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram iha vidyate tat swayam yoga samsiddha kalena atmani vindati. I think it is the 4th chapter, where Krishna says, Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitram idam vidyate, iha vidyate. There is nothing more purifying than this jnanam. Jnanam of what? Knowledge of what? Knowledge of one's own true self. There is nothing more purifying than that. One glimpse of that reality and all our problems are solved. That is the magic of this self-knowledge. So that is what here Krishna also is repeating. Pavitram Uttamam. He is glorifying this knowledge which he is going to present. Now, next two verses are extremely important. So this knowledge of the consciousness, the science of consciousness, which is the greatest science, which is also the greatest secret, this knowledge of supreme consciousness is one which purifies us permanently. And then what? Krishna is saying, Pratyakshavagaman. Every term is important. He is saying that this consciousness is Pratyaksha Avagamam. It is directly realizable. Now see, it is so interesting. We are all, everybody, every jiva is in search of that supreme reality. We are looking for it in all places. We are looking for it in small places, in small forms. This is the irony of the human mind, which is hypnotized to think that the supreme reality is confined in small cubicles, forms, places where we run to. It is good. Initially, that is the form of life which we lead in the name of religion. Here, Vedanta is presenting to us the real religion, where it is presented as the supreme reality which we are seeking, which is referred to by using the term Ishvara or God. Sri Krishna is saying it is Pratyaksha Avagamam. It is directly, without any immediacy, it is perceivable, it is experienceable here, right now, in this very experience itself. It is a very profound utterance. There is one entire book based upon this idea, which is known as Aparoksha Anubhuti of Bhagavan Sri Shankaracharya. Amazing work. This Anubhuti of the Supreme Reality, it is where? It is here, right now. What it implies is that, see, in this very classroom where we are sitting, where I am looking at you all and you are all looking at me, is this not an experience? Now, Vedanta wants to say that this experience, this so-called sensory experience, is completely saturated with the presence of Brahman. Again, I repeat this point. You are in this very classroom, you are looking at me, I am looking at you. It is an experience, it is a sensory experience, it is not. We are all perceiving something. You are perceiving forms, I am perceiving forms. Presently, you are listening to some sounds. Somebody is talking, creating sounds. You are perceiving the sounds, you are listening to the sounds. It is an experience. Vedanta wants to say that reality which we are seeking, this experience is completely saturated, completely soaked in that reality. This experience is not possible without the presence of that reality. So where is God? Here, there. God is present in all our experiences. Pratyaksham avagamam. It can be perceived, it can be experienced directly. And the most fascinating part of this whole exercise is that you don't even have to have sense organs to experience it. This experience is immediate, without the immediacy of senses and the mind. This perception takes place when our inner eye opens. When the eye of Viveka awakens, anybody, that is the beauty of this entire 9th chapter. Krishna is going to include all people whom usually we think that they cannot experience God. That is the problem. Towards the end of this chapter, Krishna is going to talk. He is going to literally take the names of certain beings whom usually we think that they are far away from God. He wants to say that no one is far away from God. Even the worst sinner, even he is soaked in Ishvara, only he doesn't know it. This is the great assurance which comes in this chapter. this entity called God or Ishvara or Parabrahman or consciousness, it is the only thing which is existing here. That is why Krishna is saying it is Pratyaksha-avagamam. Then, another point. Is it very difficult to experience it? Krishna is saying, Susukham kartum. Susukham kartum means he's saying, it is very easy to practice, he's saying. Krishna is saying, it is very easy to practice. Now see, somehow we have been hypnotized. We have been made to believe that this is very difficult. And we are living with that kind of an hypnotized notion that these things are very difficult. Yes, it is difficult. It is not wrong altogether. Why it is difficult? What makes this whole enterprise difficult or easy? What makes this whole exercise difficult or easy is only one point. Only one and only one point. Presence or the absence of vairagya. That is the only thing which makes this enterprise easy, either easy or difficult. A person who is endowed with viveka and vairagya, for that person, this is really susukham kartum. It is very easy. In the absence of viveka and vairagya, it becomes difficult. When we are madly infatuated with the things of the world, when we are totally blinded, deluded by the fascinating things which we see in this world, then this consciousness will not be experienced. It is not possible. So the only condition which will make this whole enterprise very easy is vairagya and viveka. So Krishna is saying, beautiful, pratyaksha-avagamam and dharmyam. It is righteous. Dharmyam means what? Righteous. A person who is dedicated to experience this one's own real nature, the expression of this whole enterprise in his transactional plane will be in the form of highest level of morality and ethics. That person's life will be perfectly established in righteousness. It is dharmyam. Any person whose life is dedicated to the pursuit of the supreme reality, this pursuit of the supreme reality will express itself in the form of righteousness in that person's life. It is not devoid of righteousness. The expression of this great pursuit in our day-to-day life will be in the form of righteousness. And it is susakum kartum. It is very easy to practice, Krishna is saying. And what? The result of this knowledge is what? When we have the experience of this supreme reality, when we have the experience of our own true self, Krishna is saying, the outcome, the fruit of this experience is what? Is it something perishable? It is imperishable. It is permanent. The fruit is what? The fruit is permanent end of all our misery and suffering. It is the imperishable, permanent fruit of this great Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam. That is why this Vidya is referred to as Raja Vidya and Raja Guhyam. This is the greatest thing. There is nothing superior to this. So right in the beginning, Krishna is building up the background. Krishna is making us understand, okay, my dear children, understand now what you are going to listen. This is the greatest. This is the greatest sciences of all sciences. And it is also the greatest secret of all the secrets. Why? This is the thing which is going to give you the fruit which is imperishable, which cannot be destroyed. A permanent result. The result in the form of a permanent end to all our sufferings and misery in our life. Then, in this world there are all kinds of people. People who have faith in the words of scriptures, and there are many people who don't have faith in the words of the scriptures. But just imagine, if you disregard this great teaching, especially those who are atheists, Sri Krishna is referring to or indicating at those people who take pride in saying that we are all atheists. We don't believe in a supreme reality. For us, matter alone is the reality. Who knows consciousness? consciousness is not revealed to the senses. Why should I believe in something which is not revealed to the senses? To the senses, only the matter and the material plane alone is visible, it is perceivable. Yes, I can touch this table, and my sense of touch of this table is the proof of the existence of table. Why should I believe in something which is not perceivable or which is not revealed to the senses? So we don't believe in anything which is transsensory or which doesn't come within the gamut of senses. The people who don't have Shraddha on the words of the scriptures and on the words of the great master. So Krishna is saying, what is going to be the consequence of these people? These people who don't have faith in the words of the great masters, the people who don't have faith in the words of the Upanishads, where are we going to go? If you doubt Sri Ramakrishna's words, if you doubt Shankaracharya's words, I ask this question, well, then what is the way? Who else can show us the way? Do we know the way? We the ordinary human beings, the Ajnani Jivas, do we know what is the way? The only direction in which our whole energy functions is through the body and the senses. And where does it end up? It has got no end. This side, I always say, it is just like falling into a pit which does not have a bottom. This side means the side of the body and the senses. Here in this direction which we are going, it is just like falling into a bottomless pit or a bottomless well. You can just visualize, exercise your imagination. Suppose you just close your eyes and you can just visualize that you have fallen into a well or a pit which doesn't have a bottom. What a beautiful imagination it is. You have fallen into a pit or a well which doesn't have a bottom. What happens? You fall and fall and fall and fall and fall. It is an endless fall. There is no end to it. This is our condition in this side of our life. It is just like falling into a pit which doesn't have a bottom. We fall and fall and fall and fall and fall and fall and fall. It goes on endlessly. So that is what Krishna is telling here in this third verse beautifully. He says, Ashraddhadhana purusha dharmasyasya parantapah aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. Ashraddhadhana purusha. Some people who don't have Shraddha, all those people who don't have faith in the words of the scriptures, all those people who don't have faith in the words of these great masters, Ashraddhadhana purusha. Dharmasya, asya dharmasya. Here dharma means brahmagyanam. All those people who don't have faith in this brahmagyanam, faith in this Raja Vidya, all those people who don't have Shraddha in the science of consciousness, all those people who don't have faith in self-knowledge, those who don't have faith in the existence of a transsensory reality, what happens to them? Krishna is saying, aprapya mam, they never attain to reality. And on the contrary, not attaining to the reality, what happens is that they repeatedly fall back on the path of repeated transmigration. They repeatedly come and fall back on that road which leads to endless transmigration. Transmigration means that cycle of birth and death. The cycle of birth and death. That cycle of birth and death. Which Shankaracharya so beautifully mentions in his Bhaja Govindam Sutra. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam, iha samsari khaludustari, kripaya pari, pahi murari, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudhamate, samprapte sannihite marane, nahi rakshati tunkram karani. What an electrifying statement. Again we are born. Again we die. Again we enter into the mother's womb. The cycle of birth and death goes on endlessly. The death stands in front of us, and yet we are busy here drowning ourselves in our body and the senses and nothing else. This is not going to take us anywhere. That's why Bhaja Govindam. Bhaja Govindam means nothing but the science of consciousness, this knowledge of consciousness, not the knowledge of matter. The knowledge of the matter all of us have. Even a baby has the knowledge of the matter. Nobody has to be taught about matter. Even the newborn baby can touch the mother. It can feel, it has got touch, it smells, it tastes. Material experience, nobody needs to be taught. But the experience of consciousness needs instruction, that instruction coming from Guru and Shastras. That alone saves the soul and not just this material knowledge. So here, aprapya mam nivartante mrityu samsara vartmani. This person not attaining to that supreme reality repeatedly falls back on the path of transmigration. Again he is born, again he dies, again he is born, again he dies. This goes on endlessly. So Shankaracharya here says beautifully in this Bhashya, these people who don't have faith in the words of the scriptures and the great masters, what is their problem? He says, you see, this jiva, he is presenting a situation. The jiva is a person who is completely buried in his organic framework. Jiva is a person whose ego, whose eye sense is completely buried in the so-called organic structure. Organic structure means the psychophysical system. This body, the gross body, the male body, the female body, the sense organs, the mind associated with the gross structure, this ego which is completely buried in this so-called organic structure. It doesn't want to accept the existence of something which is beyond it. It is completely buried. I am using the term buried. If you are completely buried in this organic structure, you are buried in total darkness. This is what I said, that it is just like falling into a pit which doesn't have a bottom. Here in this direction, you go endlessly. There is no end to it. This body will go, again another body will be created. You are born in another body. Again you are buried in that body. Again the whole drama goes in that life. Again that body falls down. Again a new body you create it. Our karma creates these bodies. And again we are buried in that new body. And this repeated birth in bodies after bodies of the bodies, it goes on. That person will never attain to his own or her own true nature. This is the consequences of ashraddha, not having shraddha, not having faith in one's own, in the faith in the words of the Guru and the words of the scriptures. Now comes 3 beautiful verses. Today I won't be able to do justice in the next 15 minutes to these 3 verses, but these 3 verses should be taken together. It is most fascinating. The first 3 verses of the 9th chapter is talking about the glory of the science of consciousness. We have seen the first 3 verses. In the first 3 verses, Sri Krishna is presenting to us the importance, the significance, the glory of this Atma Vidya or Atma Gyan, which is the greatest Vidya and which is also the greatest secret. He is just preparing the background. Before giving the supreme knowledge, Sri Krishna is preparing the background. Let us take this point very seriously. Now the coming 3 verses, 4, 5 and 6, Sri Krishna is going to present the highest reality straight away now. In the next 3 verses, Sri Krishna is going to present to us the highest reality. Are we ready to receive it? So Krishna is building that background. First try to understand the importance of what we are studying here. This is the greatest. This is the most important science among all the sciences, and this is also the greatest secret that exists in this creation. Understand the importance of it. and the fruit of it. When anyone experiences this so-called the supreme reality, one's own self, the Atman, the fruit of that is absolute destruction of the evil called bondage. Greatest fruit. Highest knowledge, greatest fruit. Now, what is this highest knowledge? That is what is being told in the next 3 verses. I will just read the translation. I don't want to take it up now today because perhaps, let's see, I don't know, because this needs a very detailed, elaborate explanation. It is most enigmatic. I'm not frightening you all, but it is difficult to grasp. As I said, this cannot be grasped unless we have a mind which is trained in sadhana, number one. Unless we have a mind which is well grounded in viveka and vairagya. Consciousness cannot be understood unless the mind is a mind which is trained in sadhana. And when I am speaking about a mind which is trained in sadhana, what I mean is that a mind which is well established in the practice of viveka and vairagya. Without that, we won't be able to catch what Sri Krishna is going to tell us in the next 3 verses. This is the presentation of the supreme reality. There is nothing more to be known. In the next 3 verses, what Krishna is going to talk about is the supreme reality. There is nothing beyond to be known. As I said in the beginning, this chapter will be a perfect blend of the supreme jnanam with the simplest practices of devotion. The 9th chapter is the perfect blend of the highest jnanam, knowledge, mixed with the most beautiful, simplest practices of bhakti. And this blend of jnana and bhakti is what is going to give us the fruit of freedom in this very life itself, not that kramamukti. Beautiful. So, what is the supreme reality? Sri Krishna is presenting to us, to see, we were talking about consciousness, is it not? Now, there are 2 things. We have already studied this in the 13th chapter. We have already studied this in the 7th chapter, if you all remember. This entire so-called whatever we are experiencing here, it can be classified into 2. Again, I repeat. Whatever we are experiencing here, our experience is wonderful. Experience is a very beautiful term. Anubhuti. Everything is anubhuti. Everyone is having anubhuti. But everyone is confused. Anubhuti is a universal thing. Who is not having anubhuti? Animals, plants, living beings, creatures, human beings, gods, goddesses, everybody is centered in anubhuti. And inside all our anubhuti, the supreme reality is existing. This is what Sri Krishna has hinted. It is pratyaksha avagamam. Pratyaksha avagamam means it is directly, immediately perceivable and experienceable. Directly and immediately. To perceive it and experience it, you don't even need the immediacy of sense organs. You close your eyes, you let your mind shut down everything, and yet you can experience that reality. Everything that we are experiencing here is soaked and saturated by that reality called consciousness. No experience is possible without the presence of consciousness. No experience is possible without the presence of consciousness. It is that consciousness that we are referring to as God, Ishvara, or whatever it is. So that is what now is going to be presented in the next 3 verses, the real nature of the supreme reality. What is the nature of the supreme reality? It is absolutely, in one word, it is transcendent. Note down, now that is going to be the theme in the next 3 verses. What we are referring to as this consciousness, which you are, which I am, which we all are, this consciousness is absolutely transcendent. What it means is something wonderful. Its implications are very life transforming. If we catch this point, it can change our vision drastically. This consciousness being transcendent means what? You are absolutely untouched by the so-called ups and downs of this mysterious thing called world. Again, I repeat this point. The implication of referring to this consciousness as being absolutely transcendent, the implication is this, that we are actually speaking absolutely untouched, untarnished, unaffected by the so-called the ups and downs of our daily life. Nothing can touch us. What can be more assuring than this? If you really grasp this point, this we have, those who have studied Mandukya Upanishad, this point was very detailedly discussed in our retreats. We had discussed this point. This transcendent nature of our own true self. We are now, see, this consciousness which we are talking about again. Let me just make this very point very clear. It is your description, it is my description. In the next 3 verses, Krishna, what he is going to describe, it is your description, it is my description, it is our description. We are like that. Today it may be appearing to be very far away from us, but if we do the right thing which we are supposed to do, it will become a matter of direct perception. That is the assurance with which Sri Krishna is starting this chapter. He is saying it is pratyakshaavagamam, susukham kartum. 2 things. It is directly realizable and it is easy to practice. 2 words, very, very positive, encouraging, not negative. Na hobe na. Ki kore hobe. Many people have this habit. Oh, Advaita bolle holo. Many people have this habit. Bolle holo. Actually, Advaita is the most simplest thing. We have created kind of a wrong narration that Advaita is the most difficult thing. In fact, Advaita is the simplest thing. Everything outside of Advaita is complicated and compound. Because it is all Maya Srishti. Advaita is the simplest truth. Simplest. That is why Sri Ramakrishna also said, tie the knowledge of Advaita to the corner of your cloth and then lead your life. This is the most important teaching of Sri Ramakrishna, which is least discussed. I always tell this point. Sri Ramakrishna's most important teaching is this. First, grasp what this Advaita is and then apply it to your day-to-day life. You see how beautifully you will be able to transact everything. So beautifully. Then it's a question of common sense. Advaita expressing itself in the form of common sense in your day-to-day life. You will be able to negotiate your so-called this transactional plane in the most intelligent manner. This is the ultimate philosophy. This is what Krishna was teaching Arjuna, to use your common sense coming from Advaitic vision. Using your common sense proceeding from what? Not that false ego. That common sense which proceeds from the vision of Advaita, the truth of Advaita. So beautiful. This is the philosophy of life. This is the all-comprehensive philosophy of life. So let me just read it. I will explain it in next whole class. I may have to dedicate to this 3 verses. It is a magnanimous presentation of the supreme reality. It is your picture. It is my picture. This is our true nature. Again, I said, to grasp this, we need a mind which is steeped in sadhana, a mind which has got the ingredients of Viveka and Vairagya. Without that, we won't be able to catch it. So, here Krishna is saying here, Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakthamurtina matsthani sarvabhutani nachaham teshvavastitah nacha matsthani bhutani pashyame yogamaishwaram bhutabhrannacha bhutastho mamatma bhutabhavanah yathakashasthito nityam Vayus sarvatra go mahan tatha sarvani bhutani matsthani tyupadharaya. I'll read the translation here. He's saying, This whole world is pervaded by me in my unmanifest form. All beings exist in me, but I am not contained in them. Nor do beings dwell in me. Behold my divine yoga. I am the sustainer and originator of beings, but myself is not contained in the beings. Understand thus that just as the voluminous wind moving everywhere is present in space, similarly all beings abide in me. This entire 3 verses, it is actually speaking a paradox. Paradox is a statement in which contradictory things coexist. The supreme reality, the relationship between matter and consciousness, is a paradox. Here we are going to talk about apparently 2 things. Now, I'm going to leave it here. I don't want to go into it because it is a most beautiful discussion now waiting to come. We are going to discuss the greatest secret, the paradox, the relationship between consciousness and matter. I'm using the term consciousness and matter. When you use the term and, it means there are 2 things existing. Now, questions after questions will prop up now. Are there really 2 things? And if there are 2 things, then what is the relationship between these 2 things? And if there are no 2 things, how is this one thing existing by its own self? Krishna is talking about this beautiful relationship between consciousness and so-called matter. The greatest paradox which human beings have been trying to solve from the timeless past. It is only in the Upanishads we find this great mystery resolved. We will take it up in the next class. Om Shanta Shanta Shanti Harihi Om Tat Sat.